I knew a little piano playing as a gentleman pirate should. Agatha played with an expertise it made me feel ridiculous playing before her, but still she had a way of making me do things I wasn't comfortable with. When I'd get the shakes, she would insist I practice, bringing me familiar sheet music and the latest impossibilities from local composers she frequented. Concentrating my mind with a tricky piece indeed had the effect of limiting the tremors, the twitches, the unbearable little spasms that kept me up at night. One day, the sun setting over the gray fish scales of the Toiture Parisienne, that perfect late summer warmth, the delicate breeze that carried tomate farci and stewed lamb. I sat at the piano composing. Yes, I was less accomplished as a pianist, but often had little flickers of melody in my head. A cup of bergamot splashed with goat's milk and honey growing colder by the minute, as Agatha wrote in her journal below the slanted beam. When I arrived at a particular motif, I felt the room shift, a subtle ripple in our continuum. As much as she had broken me, I felt a fissure in her impenetrable armor as she slinked around my left shoulder, and as I paused playing, my brutal fingers splayed upon the clavier, she slipped hers betwixt mine, unnaturally, in an act of intimacy most unfamiliar and challenging. She held them there for a time, her breath perceptible. A gift, a glimpse into her needs, however much she could perceive them in her ability to give and not take. What could I do that I would want to? As a man corporal, I was far from the flame necessary to light any fire, or perhaps too afraid to try. When had I last kissed someone? Had I ever? In my youth, before the fall. In an act of playful hysteria, perhaps, before feeding on their neck, but no, not like this. She gave me time, sensing my own chest in a tremble, wishing a dagger was at my neck rather than those delicate fingers electrifying the hairs on my knuckles. It was a leap into the unknown, but all I could manage was a rapprochement of our hands as I squeezed hers delicately to mine. 5 little perfect lady fingers between a hand that knew only sin and very little of the beautiful kind. Whatever time elapsed, when the sun finally set behind the Opéra Comique, we snapped out of our reverie and she slid away, and out the door and down the steps as I listened to every little wince and shudder and clicking heel, until I could hear only my own heart's perturbation, knocking to be let into a world I did not know. The mission was a man. His name was Gris. Gris was in prison. The prison was the Donjon de Vincennes, a fortification dedicated to prisoners of haute stature. Gris had been a lieutenant in the French army. He had staged a failed rebellion against the king and queen. He also could change shapes, a cat, a bat, and various other shapes as well, but only when his powers were at his most elevated. He was, as you can surmise, a vampire. Though believed dead by most of his allies, which included Agatha, she had recently received information that he was deep in an oubliette in the fortification and possibly close to his end. He was perhaps being kept alive, no doubt tortured for information, and he was Agatha's friend. Gris, or Grizzo, or Gray, had been Agatha's closest confidant, it would seem, a man of letters, diplomatic, trusted by powerful foreign leaders, including the rabble-rousers in the New World. Agatha had a plan, and now, I suppose she had the muscle. The Donjon of Vincennes, the dungeon of Vincennes, more fortress than prison, illuminated by more than 1,000 torches at night, manned by hundreds of the most premier soldiery, equipped to defend the royal family. Certainly, I had taken on an entire pirate ship once famously, but they, as pirates, were drunk, practically hallucinating. This was the creme de la camembert of the French Empire. But Agatha was unafraid, and I more fearful of her disapproval than anything else. After all, as the little emperor once said, impossible n'est pas français. I'm not one to break promises, but I'm in no mood to tell you about something as intimate as her neck right now. Sometimes I'm unsure the boy is who he says he is. But anyhow, now, cup of tea and hope for some rain.